The stars had always been a constant in the galaxy, forever distant, unyielding, and untouchable. For centuries, races across the universe had searched for ways to break the bounds of space, to travel faster than light, and to connect the isolated pockets of existence scattered across the galaxy. But despite their technological advancements, each civilization had reached the same conclusion. Faster than light, FTL. Travel was a dream that couldn't be realized, a mystery that no one had managed to unlock. That was until humanity made a discovery that shattered all expectations. It began with a quiet signal, so faint that it might have been dismissed as space noise. Yet something about it caught the attention of the Galactic Council, the governing body of the universe's most powerful and advanced civilizations. They were used to receiving data from all corners of the galaxy, but this one was different. It carried a series of complex, mathematical equations that seemed to describe something new, something profound. No one could have predicted it, but the signal was from Earth, a small, relatively primitive planet, home to a species that had barely scratched the surface of interstellar travel. The Galactic Council summoned its brightest minds to investigate. The mathematicians and scientists studied the equations, their initial skepticism slowly turning into curiosity, then confusion, and finally, disbelief. The equations, as strange as they were, suggested that someone on Earth had somehow discovered the secret to FTL travel. For a moment, the idea seemed impossible. How could a species just starting to explore the stars have solved a problem that had eluded the most advanced minds in the galaxy for millennia? The more they examined the data, the more they realized that this wasn't just a theory. It was a proven discovery, a breakthrough that could change the very fabric of space travel. The Council decided to act quickly, dispatching a diplomatic envoy to Earth to meet the humans responsible for the discovery. The envoy's task was to investigate the claim and bring back answers. As they made their way to Earth, questions flooded their minds. Was this a hoax? Were the humans simply lucky to stumble upon something so monumental? Or had they truly unlocked the secrets of the universe in a way no one had ever imagined? The humans, led by Dr. Kendra Lawson, a brilliant scientist who had been working in isolation on a project that few had understood, welcomed the envoys with a mixture of pride and uncertainty. Dr. Lawson had never expected her work to attract such attention. In fact, she had been so absorbed in her research that the implications of her discovery had never truly dawned on her. But now, as the Galactic Council's representatives stepped into her lab, the weight of the moment became clear. Dr. Lawson explained her discovery in simple terms, though it was clear that the science behind it was anything but simple. She had found a way to manipulate the very fabric of space-time itself, using a combination of quantum entanglement and a peculiar understanding of ancient human theories that had long been dismissed as irrelevant. By folding space at a quantum level, her team had developed a method of bypassing the limitations of conventional FTL travel. In essence, they had found a way to create shortcuts in the fabric of the universe, allowing them to travel vast distances in the blink of an eye. The council members listened intently, their expressions a mix of awe and disbelief. For centuries, they had believed that true FTL travel was beyond the reach of any species. It was an impossibility that could only be theorized about in the most advanced scientific circles. And yet, here was a human, a species that had once struggled to send people into orbit, explaining that they had not only overcome that barrier, but had done so in a way that was radically different from anything the galaxy had seen before. As Dr. Lawson spoke, she demonstrated the technology. She invited the Council's representatives to witness the first test flight of a human ship powered by this new FTL technology. The Vanguard, a sleek vessel built by humanity's best engineers, was waiting on the launch pad, ready to embark on its maiden voyage. The council members, though skeptical, couldn't help but feel a spark of hope. Could this truly be the dawn of a new era? The launch was brief but spectacular. Within minutes, the Vanguard disappeared from sight, its engines glowing as it accelerated at a speed no one had thought possible. Moments later, it reappeared, hundreds of light years away on the edge of the galaxy. It had traveled faster than any ship had ever traveled, crossing vast stretches of space in an instant. The demonstration was over, and the implications were clear. Humanity had not just discovered FTL travel, they had reinvented it. The council members sat in stunned silence, unable to comprehend what they had just witnessed. They had seen something that changed everything. Back at the council chamber, debates erupted. Some representatives were thrilled by the possibility that humanity could now play a key role in the galactic community. The Terrigens, a race known for their diplomacy and scientific exploration, saw this as an opportunity to unite the galaxy like never before. They believed that humanity's innovation could lead to a new era of cooperation and understanding between species. Others, however, were not so sure. The Vrelians, a technologically advanced species known for their militaristic tendencies, viewed humanity's breakthrough with suspicion. They saw the potential for this technology to upset the balance of power in the galaxy, and they were not ready to accept a new player with such unprecedented power. The Council's discussions grew heated, with some factions arguing that humanity should be allowed to freely share their technology, while others demanded strict controls to prevent misuse. But one thing was undeniable. Humanity's discovery had irrevocably changed the future of the galaxy. Whether for better or worse, the galaxy could never go back to the way it had been before. As the Council continued its deliberations, Dr. Lawson and her team were left to wonder what would come next. Would they be hailed as heroes, or would they become the target of those who feared their newfound power? The road ahead was uncertain, and the weight of their discovery hung heavy on their shoulders. But one thing was certain: humanity had just become the most important species in the galaxy, and nothing would ever be the same again. The discovery of faster-than-light, FTL, travel by humanity, had rocked the very foundation of the Galactic Council, and the aftermath was filled with questions. The initial shock had barely settled when the Council realized something even more important had been revealed, something they hadn't expected. Humanity's breakthrough wasn't just about new technology. It was about a new way of thinking, a fresh perspective that had eluded even the most advanced species in the galaxy. The secrets behind their FTL technology were as complex as they were unexpected, and the Council was desperate to uncover the full extent of what the humans had discovered. Dr. Kendra Lawson, the brilliant human scientist who had led the research, stood before the Council again, this time not to demonstrate the technology, but to explain how it worked. The Council members were eager to hear the truth behind humanity's sudden leap in capabilities. The Vanguard, the human ship that had made the first successful FTL voyage, had stunned them all by traveling to distant stars in mere moments. They had seen the results, but now they needed to understand the science that powered this impossible achievement. They couldn't afford to overlook any details, no matter how trivial they seemed. Dr. Lawson was calm, collected, but behind her eyes there was a flicker of uncertainty. She knew that the truth would change everything. The equation she had developed, which had seemed so simple at first, was more than just a breakthrough. It was a key to something far greater. Humanity's FTL travel was built on a unique combination of quantum entanglement and a principle of space-time folding that no one had thought possible. But what made it even more extraordinary was how they had discovered it, not by following established scientific principles, but by relying on old theories and principles that had long been ignored by the scientific community. Human innovation didn't come from following the well-trodden path. It came from the willingness to take risks, to challenge the impossible, and sometimes to look back rather than forward. The Council listened intently as Dr. Lawson began to explain. At the heart of humanity's breakthrough was a simple idea. Rather than trying to push faster than light, they had learned how to fold space itself. Instead of moving through space at incredible speeds, the ship would essentially skip from one point to another, like skipping a stone across a pond. It was as if space itself was a fabric that could be manipulated, twisted, and folded in such a way that a ship could appear at its destination without traversing the space in between. The technology was based on ancient human theories of quantum entanglement, which had been studied for. The council was stunned. The concept itself was so simple yet so revolutionary that it left them questioning their own understanding of the universe. How had humanity, an upstart species, only recently capable of space travel, managed to unlock such a powerful secret? They had believed that only the most advanced species could even dream of such technology. But here was a human scientist explaining it, as if it were a logical conclusion to a series of steps. The revelation was mind-boggling. The more the council thought about it, the more they realized that humanity's discovery wasn't just a one-off fluke. It was the result of something much deeper. As the council deliberated on what this meant for the future, they couldn't help but wonder about the broader implications. If humanity could manipulate space-time so effortlessly, what else could they do? Was this just the beginning of a new age of discovery? Or was there something more dangerous lurking beneath the surface of this newfound power? Dr. Lawson had explained the basics of the technology, but there was still much they didn't understand. What they did know was that humanity's FTL travel wasn't just a technological leap. It was a window into a whole new way of thinking about the universe. But there were other secrets, too. As Dr. Lawson continued to speak, she revealed that humanity's breakthrough wasn't solely the result of scientific research. There was a certain amount of unpredictability to it. The quantum entanglement theory had been around for centuries, but it was never considered practical for space travel. Most scientists had abandoned it in favor of more conventional methods, assuming it was too complicated and unreliable. But Dr. Lawson and her team had approached it differently. They had believed that human ingenuity, combined with a stubborn refusal to accept the limits of science, was the key to unlocking the secrets of the universe. In the end, it wasn't just their understanding of physics that had made the breakthrough possible. It was the way humans had approached the problem. Their unorthodox methods, their ability to think outside the established norms, that had led them to success. The council members exchanged nervous glances. Could this unpredictable, unorthodox way of thinking be a threat to the established order of the galaxy? The older, more established civilizations had their own way of doing things, their own rigid scientific principles that they trusted above all else. But humanity had shattered that trust, and in doing so, had introduced an element of chaos into the equation. The possibility that a species could think so radically and solve problems in such unexpected ways was both exhilarating and terrifying. One council member, a representative of the Teresians, spoke up, their voice filled with awe. "We have seen many incredible advancements over the centuries, but nothing like this. The human race doesn't just follow the laws of the universe. They seem to bend them to their will. What other surprises do they have in store for us?" His words hung in the air, a silent question that everyone in the room was asking themselves. Another representative, the Vrelian, looked concerned. "This is not just a technological breakthrough. This is a new way of seeing the universe, and that can be dangerous. What if humans use this power to disrupt the balance we've carefully maintained for centuries? What if they start pushing boundaries that even we can't control?" The fear in his voice was palpable. The discovery had shaken the foundations of the council, and now the fear of the unknown loomed large. As the discussions continued, the council was faced with a difficult decision. Humanity had unlocked the secrets of FTL travel, but with that discovery came a host of questions and uncertainties. Could the galaxy trust this young species with such power? Would they use their newfound abilities for good, or would they seek to dominate those who had once been more advanced? The council didn't have answers, but one thing was clear. Humanity had changed everything. And now, the galaxy would have to decide how to handle this new, unpredictable force. Dr. Lawson watched the council's reactions with a mix of pride and apprehension. She had always believed in the potential of humanity, but even she had not fully realized how her discovery would alter the course of galactic history. She knew that there were more secrets to be uncovered, more mysteries waiting to be explored. But for now, she could only hope that the galaxy would see humanity's potential for peace and cooperation, not just their power. As the meeting concluded, and the council members left, the weight of the future seemed heavier than ever. Humanity's secrets had been revealed, and now the galaxy had to reckon with the consequences. What would come next? Only time would tell. The Galactic Council had always prided itself on its ability to maintain balance, peace, and control across the galaxy. For centuries, they had ensured that power was distributed evenly, and that no one civilization could dominate the others. But now, for the first time in history, the Council was facing a threat unlike anything they had ever imagined. It wasn't an invasion, nor a rebellion. It was something far more insidious, a force that had never existed before: humanity's sudden and unimaginable technological leap. The discovery of faster-than-light, FTL, travel by the humans had sent shockwaves through the galaxy. What had once seemed like an impossible dream for any species had now been realized by Earth's inhabitants, a species that had only recently begun to explore the stars. The Council had been blindsided by this breakthrough, and the implications were profound. Humanity's FTL technology was not just a new way of traveling. It was a new way of thinking, a completely different approach to science and the universe itself. And that scared the Council to its core. In the grand chambers of the Galactic Council, representatives from every major species gathered for an emergency session. The usual air of confidence and diplomatic cordiality was replaced by a palpable sense of unease. The Teresians, known for their composed and logical approach to every issue, were visibly shaken. The Vrelians, whose militaristic power was unmatched, sat in silence, their minds racing with the potential threats that humanity's discovery could pose. Even the Zorethians, an ancient and wise species who had seen it all, were unnerved. For the first time, the Council was faced with something they could not control, something they couldn't even fully comprehend. What are we to do with them? The question was asked by a Zorethian elder, his voice heavy with concern. These humans, they have done something that defies everything we thought we knew about the universe. They have broken the laws of space-time itself. A murmur of agreement passed through the Council. No one had expected this. No one had anticipated that a species so young, so new to the galactic stage, could hold such power. The Teresians were the first to respond. Their leader, a tall figure with silver-blue skin, speaking with controlled precision. We must approach this with caution. The humans have not only discovered FTL travel, but they have also shown that they can manipulate space in ways that we cannot even begin to understand. If they were to use this technology recklessly, they could disrupt the very fabric of the galaxy. There was a tense silence. The Council members were all too aware of the risks. The Vrelians, ever focused on power and military strategy, were the next to speak. We must make sure that the humans do not use this technology for military purposes. If they can travel faster than light, they can strike at any part of the galaxy before we even know they are there. They could become an unstoppable force, and we would be helpless to stop them. The Zorethians nodded gravely. It is not just the military threat that concerns us. It is the unknown. Humanity has demonstrated that they can think outside the limits of our science. If their FTL technology is just the beginning, what other surprises do they have in store for us? What other discoveries could they make that could change the galaxy forever? As the discussions continued, the sense of fear grew stronger. The Council had always prided itself on its ability to manage risks and maintain order. But with humanity's newfound power, they felt that the balance of the galaxy was no longer in their hands. The humans had broken through barriers that had kept the galaxy in check for millennia. And now the Council was faced with the terrifying possibility that they might not be able to control the consequences. The question of how to deal with humanity was a matter of great urgency. The Council had always maintained a policy of peaceful coexistence, but humanity's sudden rise to power had thrown that policy into question. Should they welcome humanity into the fold, allowing them to share their knowledge and technology? Or should they treat them with suspicion, fearing that the humans might use their? There were those who believed that the only way to ensure peace was to keep humanity at a distance, to prevent them from gaining access to the galaxy's most sensitive technologies and secrets. The Teresians, always the diplomats, argued that humanity should be given the chance to prove themselves. They are new to the galaxy, their leader said. They have made an incredible discovery, yes, but we must give them time to learn and grow. They may yet prove to be valuable allies. But not everyone agreed. The Vrelians, their militaristic instincts kicking in, saw only the threat. They are too unpredictable, their representative barked. We cannot risk leaving them unchecked. They must be monitored, controlled, and their technology should be kept under strict regulation. The debate raged on, with no clear consensus. Each species had their own perspective on how to handle humanity's sudden rise, but no one could deny the underlying fear that gripped them all. The unknowns of humanity's FTL technology were too great, and the risk of what might come next was too high. Meanwhile, Dr. Kendra Lawson, the human scientist responsible for the breakthrough, sat quietly in a chamber on Earth, watching the situation unfold from afar. She had never intended for her discovery to cause such chaos. Her goal had always been to push the boundaries of science, to explore the unknown, and to share that knowledge with the galaxy. But now, as the galaxy's leaders debated her work, she realized that her invention had opened a door that could not be closed. The fear in the Council's eyes reflected a deeper truth. Humanity's power, while incredible, was also dangerous. Dr. Lawson had always believed in the good of humanity. She trusted her people, believed that they would use their power wisely. But she understood the Council's fear. They didn't know humanity like she did. They hadn't seen the years of struggle, the wars, the peace treaties, and the advancements that had shaped the human race. To them, humanity was just a young species with too much power, a species that could easily lose control. As the Council's debate stretched on into the hours of the night, it became clear that no easy solution would be found. The fear that humanity's FTL technology sparked was not just about the technology itself, but about the potential for change. The galaxy had existed for millennia under certain laws and rules. But now, with humanity's discovery, those rules had been broken. The very fabric of their reality was under threat, and the Council knew that they could no longer predict what would happen next. In the end, the only certainty was this: the galaxy had changed, and with humanity's arrival, the balance of power, once so firmly in the hands of the Council, was no longer guaranteed. The fear that had gripped the Council members wasn't just about a new technology. It was about a new era, one that they couldn't control, one that they didn't fully understand. And in that uncertainty lay the greatest fear of all. For centuries, the galaxy had followed an unspoken order. Civilizations rose and fell under the watchful eye of the Galactic Council, a powerful alliance of ancient species that quietly shaped the future of countless worlds. They had seen wars, peace treaties, trade pacts, and rebellions, but nothing had prepared them for what the humans did next. Humanity, still considered a young and unpredictable species by most of the galaxy, had suddenly made a move that no one had anticipated. It was not a declaration of war, nor a discovery of powerful new weapons. It was something far more daring. In a moment that shook the stars, Earth's leaders sent a message to the Galactic Council. It was short, clear, and impossible to ignore. We will no longer follow. We will lead. The message reached the Council in the middle of their most routine session, and what followed was absolute silence. Representatives from powerful races, the Vrelians, Teresians, Cathari, and Zorathians, stared at the transmission in disbelief. Humanity had not only claimed their independence from the existing galactic systems, but they had declared themselves a leading force. No race had ever dared to challenge the authority of the Council so directly. Whispers spread through the chamber. Some thought it was a bluff. Others believed the humans had finally lost their minds. But none could deny the growing unease settling in the hearts of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. What did the humans have that gave them such confidence? The answer came sooner than expected. Only days after the declaration, humanity revealed something the Council hadn't seen coming. A brand new alliance formed in complete secrecy. Dozens of smaller species, tired of being sidelined and ignored by the Council for centuries, had joined forces with Earth. These were species that had been colonized, suppressed, or forgotten, their voices silenced by more dominant powers. But humanity had reached out to them, offered equality and cooperation, and built trust where others had only shown arrogance. Ships from across the stars began to gather in Earth's orbit, ships of all shapes and colors, carrying banners of unity, not conquest. It was the birth of something entirely new, a coalition built not on control, but on shared ambition. The Galactic Council watched with growing concern as Earth's influence spread like wildfire. Within weeks, the humans and their allies had set up communication hubs, shared advanced technology, and started talks on joint exploration missions. They weren't just challenging the Council, they were building an entirely new system. While some races still doubted the humans, believing they would stumble or self-destruct, others began to question the Council's ability to respond. The Vrelians demanded immediate action, proposing a military blockade around Earth. "We must remind them who holds power in this galaxy," their ambassador roared during a tense meeting. But the Zorethians, wise and old, cautioned restraint. The humans are not like others. They do not move recklessly. Every step they take is part of a larger design. That insight proved true when another shocking move was revealed. Earth's scientists had developed a new method of deep space communication that bypassed traditional relay stations, allowing near-instant contact across vast distances. It wasn't just more efficient, it was untraceable. Suddenly, the Council could no longer monitor every conversation, every plan, every secret. The humans and their growing alliance now had a private channel the Council couldn't access, and the sense of control the Council once held began to slip away. Behind closed doors, paranoia grew. Who else would join the humans? What technologies were they hiding? Had they developed weapons the Council couldn't detect? But no answers came, only more bold moves. Humanity opened trade routes, not only offering technology, but sharing it freely with those who had nothing. In doing so, they created loyalty that could not be bought or broken. And perhaps most terrifying of all, the humans didn't demand obedience. They offered respect. It was a tactic the Council had never considered, and it was working faster than fear ever had. Now, species who once remained silent were speaking out against the Council. They pointed to humanity and asked why they couldn't have the same freedom, the same chance. The Council's grip loosened with each passing day, and their attempts to intimidate or shame the humans only made Earth's alliance stronger. On Earth, President Lena Vasquez stood before the United Alliance Assembly, addressing representatives from dozens of worlds. Her words were calm, but powerful. "We are not here to conquer. We are not here to replace. We are here to change what no longer works. The Council has held the stars long enough. Now it is time for a new voice to rise." The speech was broadcast across the galaxy, and millions watched in stunned silence. It was the final confirmation that humanity was not stepping back. They were stepping forward. But while the people of Earth cheered, and new allies flocked to join them, the Council's inner chambers became a place of quiet panic. They had relied on control, on fear, on old systems, but none of those worked on the humans. The more they pushed back, the more Earth stood firm. There was no rebellion, no war, no threats, just a relentless wave of unity, vision, and bold action that no one knew how to stop. Then came the final move. Humanity, along with its alliance, announced the formation of the Stellar Accord, a new galactic organization based on fairness, transparency, and shared exploration. It was open to all species, even those still loyal to the Council. But there was one rule. No single race could dominate, not even the humans. That move silenced even the harshest critics. The humans were not seeking to rule. They were building something better, something the Council had promised long ago, but never delivered. And in that moment, the galaxy realized something terrifying. The humans weren't bold because they were reckless. They were bold because they believed in each other, believed in change. and that belief had become the most powerful force in the galaxy. As the stars looked down on the new alliance, and the Galactic Council quietly faded into the background, a new chapter in history began, one led not by fear, but by boldness, by unity, and by a species no one had expected to lead. The stars had watched humanity rise from a silent blue planet, once unknown and unnoticed, into a name that echoed across the galaxy with both fear and admiration. For centuries, advanced alien civilizations had looked upon Earth as a mere curiosity, primitive, emotional, unpredictable. But now, everything had changed. Humanity had not only caught up to the galactic powers, they had begun to lead. After forming the Stellar Accord and uniting dozens of forgotten and oppressed species, the humans had done something no one had dared to attempt. They had redefined what it meant to be a power in the galaxy. The question was no longer if humans belonged among the stars. It was what kind of future they would build there. Whispers of their growing influence reached even the darkest corners of space. Old empires grew nervous, their thrones built on centuries of control now shaking beneath them. Newer species looked toward Earth as a beacon of hope. But what truly startled the galaxy was not humanity's strength, it was their vision. Humans spoke not of ruling others, but of uplifting them. They did not hide their secrets, but shared knowledge freely, breaking centuries-old barriers that had kept progress locked behind selfish agendas. They opened schools in distant systems, sent engineers to dying planets, and offered medical technologies that could save entire species. And yet, not everyone believed it was all so simple. Deep within the hidden chambers of the former Galactic Council, remaining members debated in hushed, tense voices. Some believed the humans were simply laying the groundwork for domination through kindness. Others thought Earth had discovered something, some lost knowledge or ancient power, that gave them unnatural confidence. They couldn't understand how a species so young, so new to the stars, could move with such certainty. But while old powers clung to fear, humanity moved forward. Earth's first intergalactic summit was announced, an open invitation to every known species, from the most powerful empires to the smallest independent colonies. The summit wasn't about power, it was about the future. We cannot build tomorrow with the tools of yesterday, President Lena Vasquez said, her voice calm but firm as her image was broadcast across thousands of systems. We must choose a new path, together. It wasn't just a speech, it was a moment that split history. Species that had never sat at the same table now gathered in one place. Enemies stood inches apart, not with weapons, but with questions. And at the center of it all stood the humans, not as rulers, but as the spark that lit a movement no one could stop. Among the attendees was a young alien named Rilchan, from a race nearly wiped out by ancient wars. Her people had never been invited to a galactic event before. Now she stood in Earth's orbit, watching ships from across the stars form a ring of hope around the planet. This is not how power usually looks, she whispered to herself. This is something else. Inside the summit, humanity revealed their boldest project yet, the Ark Initiative. A mission not of conquest or expansion, but restoration. They had mapped countless abandoned worlds, planets lost to pollution, war, or neglect, and now planned to restore them, one by one, as homes for those without one. It was massive, expensive, and incredibly difficult, but they had already started. Terraforming drones had landed on 3 barren planets, and signs of green life were already returning. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. Who would do such a thing without personal gain? The answer was simple: humans. Because while others had forgotten compassion in their race for power, humanity had remembered. Not because they were perfect, but because they had suffered too. They had learned, through pain and mistakes, that the strongest future is one built together. Still, shadows lingered. Somewhere beyond known space, powerful warlords and old dynasties watched humanity's rise with growing hatred. To them, unity meant the end of control. If kindness became strength, then fear would no longer serve them. They began to plan in secret, forming dark alliances, preparing to strike. They believed the humans could be broken, that their ideals were weak, and that when attacked, Earth would show its true face, one of desperation and violence. But when the attack came, it didn't unfold as expected. A massive fleet appeared in a remote sector, targeting a planet under restoration. Instead of panicking, Earth responded with calm precision. Their allies stood beside them, not because they were forced, but because they wanted to. The battle that followed wasn't just a defense, it was a statement. Humanity fought not just for themselves, but for every life that believed in a better future. And when the attackers were defeated, something even more surprising happened. Instead of executing or humiliating the survivors, the humans offered them a choice: join the Accord and rebuild what they tried to destroy. Some refused, too proud to accept mercy, but many accepted, shaken by the strength and honor they had witnessed. That moment became a turning point. Humanity was no longer seen as a rising force. They were now the center of a new age. And yet, they remained humble. Earth refused to name itself the capital of the Accord. Instead, they built a floating station in neutral space called Horizon, where every species had a seat, a voice, and a purpose. Horizon became the heart of the new galaxy, pulsing with ideas, hope, and shared dreams. Children born under its light grew up not knowing fear of other species, but curiosity. And in that change, the future was rewritten. Humanity's story was no longer about Earth alone. It was about what happens when the least expected rise with open hands instead of closed fists. It was about building something greater than any one world. As years passed, and the stars watched with quiet wonder, one thing became clear: the future of humanity in the galaxy was not domination or destruction. It was leadership through compassion, courage through unity, and a legacy not written in fire, but in light. And that future, once doubted by all, had now become the galaxy's greatest hope.